How's it? Welcome back. So, how could you use what are essentially audible hallucinations to help you build out your liminal dreaming stage one of sleep hypnagogic space? And so, this is something cool that I stumbled into, and I'm really happy I did because I feel like it gives me another way to describe how to get into this state that I'm sure will benefit a good amount of you out there. Because when it comes to this whole hypnagogic thing, I've been talking about it for years. I really might be the one person on the internet who talks about this shit the most, but I've always focused on the visual aspect of it and kind of just like ignored the whole auditory side of things. But recently I had two comments come in that were asking questions more along the lines of the auditory stuff. So I thought, what the heck? Why not lie down and try to use that as my object of attention for, that particular hypnagogic meditation session? And it worked really good, at least for the last 2 days I've been trying it. So here's how I did it. First of all, lie down and relax, get into a comfortable enough position that you could potentially fall asleep in. Earplugs can definitely be beneficial for this, although they're not necessarily needed. For me personally, I do sleep at night with earplugs every night, but then yesterday I had to catch like the first flight out to a neighbor island for work. So when I got home, I was pretty run down and tired, so I lied down for, a quick little power nap slash a quick little hypnagogic meditation session with no earplugs, decent amount of background noise, and I was still able to get into the same hypnagogic state, you know, just as well. So as you're lying down, start drifting towards a sleepier state, however you want. But then once you kind of start getting into that sleepier state and you feel like you're getting closer to actually stage one of sleep, you want to make sure that you're following along the thoughts in your head and be listening for them. Where normally what I would say for this is be watching what's happening behind your closed eyes for those images start to pop up. But in this case, be just kind of listening to the narrative. But the key point here is I'm not listening for specific words. I'm just kind of listening for the general vibe, cadence, tone of whatever thoughts are going on in my head, right? So not specific words. And then as you're doing that, while maintaining your lucid awareness, right, you want to try to get caught up in the narrative or story of, of those thoughts. Then also, while this is going on, still using the auditory side as your main object of attention. That's what you're listening out for. Be letting scenarios play out in your mind of what the movements or the body language of these scenarios would be. And then, at least for me, you can tell when it's starting to work when the experience deepens. And I wish I had a better way to describe this. I can just give you some kind of markers to look out for. Like, it will start to deepen more. It's not like you're clearly hearing the conversation. It's still more just an impression of it. But then what happened to me is then the images start to pop up. But the same thing goes with the images, where it's not going to be like the full-on clear color type of hypnagogia. It was more like just an impression or like an imprint of those of that thought in my head in the blackness behind my closed eyes. And then once you get to that point, then I just switch over to my regular technique for following this whole hypnagogic state, where essentially I'm narrating in my head what it is I'm seeing and witnessing as if I was writing it down inside of my dream journal to document all of that stuff. So yeah, I hope I explained that decently well. I'll continue to explore the space and try to come up with clearer ways to describe it. But for now, that's that. And until the next video, keep your liminal dreaming practice legit. So I didn't really like how I described it just now in that video. So I went ahead and I was lying down for 15 minutes to get back into the hypnagogic state using that same technique. Hopefully my face doesn't look too sleepy. I don't think it does. But it did work again. But I did notice something that I wanted to point out here. So sometimes when I'm like super duper sleep deprived, as I pointed out in a couple of the videos leading up to this one, is I can get like really loud hypnagogia, where typically for me it will be like music playing. And it's loud to the point to, even though I know I'm really tired and I can expect that I might be hearing music or some kind of hypnagogic noise, like it's so loud seeming to me that I'll start doubting myself and wondering if I really, if somebody really is playing music. So I'll wake myself up out of the state just to clearly listen, realize it really is silent, know for sure that I'm tripping, and then I'll go ahead and, enter back into the state. So the sound I'm hearing when I'm doing this technique that I was just describing, like it's not so much a clear hearing. I could see how some people might describe it as clearly hearing, but I'd say for me, it's more like feeling the sound, feeling the vibes, feeling the cadence, feeling the tone of the conversation. And like I said too, it's still not coming through in clear words. Now, I do have a sense and I know like what's being discussed and said, but it's not clearly heard. So anyway, hope that sounds better. Really got to figure out a better way to describe this shit. But yeah, so we'll leave it with that. Until the next video, keep your lucid dreaming, keep your hypnagogic meditation practice legit.